So we'll just give everybody a couple of minutes to come in and take their seats. So does journalism figure into the new economy?
Well, I mean, journalism figures into how we're designing the university. So we have one of the most important journalism schools in all of the democracies of the planet, and named for one of the most important journalists ever, Walter Cronkite. And so from our perspective, we're looking to enhance citizen awareness. We're looking to enhance local news. We're looking to enhance, as you're doing in what you're teaching, Gary, storytelling. And so journalism is an important part of the core of how we're evolving the university. Absolutely. And the university then is important to the success of the economy, as is the university, the university's graduates.
Okay. We'll just give them one more minute.
You and I both have sunlight, the rising sun coming through one of our windows, because I've got it on my left side. Looks like you've got it on your left side also.
Left side, yeah.
So you're facing southwest.
I'm facing south, yeah. So, all right, let's get started. Excuse me. So good morning and thank you for joining us. I'm Gary Grotto, the executive editor of the Arizona Capital Times. And today's morning scoop will cover the new economy, which some call the fourth industrial revolution, in which emerging technologies such as optics, robotics, AI, cybersecurity, engineering, biotechnology, et cetera, will play a dominant role. And we'll also focus on the Arizona State University's new economy initiative. I want to thank our sponsor, Arizona State University, for helping us to bring you this fascinating topic. Arizona State University is the largest public research university in the United States, with about 150 students on campus and online. The university has been named 6 consecutive years by U.S. News and World Report as the most innovative university in the country. ASU is the standard bearer for the New American University, and in 2014, it adopted the new ASU Charter, which expresses the values and commitments of the university, or as President Crow calls it, ASU's promise to the citizens of Arizona. The charter reads, ASU is a comprehensive public research university, measured not by whom it excludes, but by whom it includes and how they succeed, advancing research and discovery of public value, and assuming fundamental responsibility for the economic, social, cultural, and overall health of the community it serves. Our panelist this morning is Dr. Michael Crow, an educator, a knowledge enterprise architect, a science and technology public scholar, and a higher education leader. He became president of Arizona State University in 2002, and under his leadership, ASU underwent a rapid and groundbreaking evolution into one of the world's best public research universities. The university established 25 transdisciplinary schools, including the School of Earth and Space Exploration, the School for the Future of Innovation and Society, and the School of Human Evolution and Social Change. ASU has also launched trailblazing multidisciplinary initiatives, including the Biodesign Institute, the Julie Ann Wrigley Global Institute of Sustainability and Innovation. And one of Dr. Crow's most visible accomplishments includes the multifaceted partnership with the city of Phoenix, which led to the creation of the ASU Downtown Phoenix campus. Thank you for joining us, Dr. Crow.
Hey, Gary, nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, before we begin the discussion, I want to remind our viewers that they can submit questions via the chat, and we welcome their participation. So, Dr. Crow, before we begin discussing the new economy initiative, I'd like to briefly discuss something you said in the House Appropriations Committee on Wednesday. You said ASU is fully operational and with record enrollment. How have you managed to achieve that in these times of the pandemic?
Well, thanks, Gary. You know, the pandemic for us started 104 weeks ago when we had a positive case in our community, exactly 104 weeks ago, so 2 years for us. And since then, we've been operational every day, 24/7. We were only not providing at least hybrid education for just a few weeks. And then this semester, and last semester, we're fully operational. 70,000 plus students on campus, 70,000 plus students online, tens of thousands, more than 20,000 individual courses being taught. Students are coming to class. Sports are underway, programs are underway, and we're managing our way through the pandemic by just being reactive and smart and adjusting. And enrollment, as you mentioned, is at maximum level that we've ever had. This is our last year, 2021. We graduated the largest number of graduates that we've ever produced, and had the most students we've ever had. And then this year, moving into 2022, enrollment's even higher. In fact, spring enrollment's the highest that we've ever had, with almost a 5% increase in enrollment over last spring semester, year to year. So almost 100,000 people on campus every day. Close tracking of the pandemic. We built our own high-speed saliva-based PCR test that we also use statewide. That's giving us, instant, very rapid, very accurate assessments of who's positive. The positive folks stay home for a few days. Everybody else keeps going. You move off being positive, you come back. So we're just sort of operating in this kind of modality.
Well, I graduated from there when I think there were 48,000 students. So
yeah, a few more.
So you had a discussion, or we had a discussion on the new economy last year, and there was a substantial funding proposal pending for the university's new economy initiative, which we'll talk about a little later. But for now, can you explain what the new economy is, what kind of professions or industries we're talking about, what kind of workforce are we going to need, and also can you explain ASU's new economy initiative?
Yeah, the way to look at this, Gary, is that, and here's what's happening. Things are accelerating. So that my little cell phone here turns out to be an Apple iPhone. It's got a chip in it. The chip has in it, or on the microchip that's in it, has 12 billion transistors on a single chip. That single chip, like the chips in your car, for which now there might be 6 dozen microchips in your car now, like the chips in many, many things that are going on, are just one angle of changing the way the economy works. We're able to make things think faster, solve problems more quickly, opening up new economic opportunities. And then if you add to that, as you said in the intro, the switch to a bio-driven economy from a physically driven economy, where we're engineering new everything that you can possibly imagine. The way to think about this is that the new economy is an economy that is, in an accelerated way and in an additive way, building new knowledge-driven enterprises that then affect everything else. They affect food, they affect water, they affect work, they affect travel, they affect cars, they affect medicine, they affect health. And so all of those industries and education, all of those industries are being then impacted by new knowledge-driven technologies. And so what we're trying to do in the New Economy Initiative is make certain that Arizona is at the absolute leading edge. We've got to compete within the United States. The United States has got to compete against China, compete against other technologically evolving economies around the world. All those things mean all kinds of new jobs. You've probably heard about the new semiconductor manufacturing plants moving over here, TSMC in North Phoenix, the expansion of the Intel facilities in Chandler, the bringing in of 100 new companies in the supply chain for TSMC. These are all high-tech companies, all high-tech businesses. So that New Economy Initiative is intended to help the workforce to be prepared, help the new economy to move forward, and help new science-based and technology-based businesses to evolve. Like we have a company, this will be the last comment I make on this, but we have a company based in Scottsdale that captures water from the atmosphere using solar energy, and then uses that as a way to produce purified water just drawn from the atmosphere. We have a company in Chandler and Gilbert, which is focused on building algae platforms using biotechnology to produce new chemicals from algae, to produce new foodstuffs from algae. And all of these things are whole new businesses and whole new ways to do things. So the New Economy Initiative is built around that.
What would they build from algae?
So if you take algae, you can use water. Well, first you can build fats and oils from the lipids that grow in the fat cells that grow in algae. You can use the chemicals in algae to produce medical feedstocks and food feedstocks. You can use the algae itself to then also produce fuel from the oils that are in the algae. And so all you need is sunlight, water, carbon dioxide, and algae, and you can build these massive factories of chemicals, foodstuffs, ingredients in things, and it's a whole new way to do things.
Will we be seeing them at the supermarket someday?
You'll never see anything that looks like algae, but but the feedstocks that go into your food or into your energy systems can come from these algae energy systems.
Okay. So where are the opportunities for Arizona to excel in the new economy?
So Arizona right now is of the 5 tiers of technologically advanced states, Arizona is in the 2nd tier, which is a pretty nice position to be in. We have a lot of high-tech manufacturing here. We have a lot of high-tech manufacturing moving here. We have a new resurgence of biotech companies. We've got all kinds of things that are happening. But what's happening now is as the rate of technological change accelerates, as autonomous vehicles come out, as intelligent highway systems are evolved, as new computational systems are put into medicine, the 1st tier technology states are accelerating even more rapidly. Let's take a place like Colorado or Washington here in the West. And what's happening in those places is they're birthing more companies, starting more companies, attracting more companies, attracting more high wage jobs, concentrating first tier science and technology driven companies. And Arizona needs to be competitive with them. The New Economy Initiative is intended to help us to do that. We're producing the most significant engineering school in the country. We're growing the largest and ultimately most research intensive engineering school in the United States. We're evolving new science and technology centers, new research centers. We're trying to catch up with the folks in Seattle, for instance. We're trying to catch up with the folks in Austin and in Boston and in Silicon Valley, and we can do that. And so what we're trying to do is to move Arizona into the 1st tier of technologically advanced, knowledge-driven state economies.
How big of a difference is there between 1st and 2nd? And what's the difference?
It's a huge difference in the way the economy shapes out. So in Colorado, for instance, the per capita GDP in Colorado is 25% higher than the per capita GDP in Arizona. So you take the entire economy and person by person by person by person, they're producing a 25% larger economy. Well, and then in Seattle, Metro Seattle, King County, Washington, what you're seeing there is job creation and wage development where it's different than here. So we have high population growth here, but we don't have yet the kind of competitive wage growth on a per capita GDP basis. And so those 2 places are examples of that gap. And then in Austin, Texas, another college town like Tempe is, you've got very, very rapid evolution of the economy. And here, for instance, in the last recession, we had a deep dive here in Arizona and a slow climb. Now we've gotten out of the hill, gotten above the hill. The governor and others have sort of been disciplined to help us to move forward and so forth and so on. But we did have the deepest dive and a slow climb out. The Seattle economy, the Austin economy, the Metro Denver economy, the Colorado economy all had less of a dive and a much more rapid recovery. And so what we're talking about here is being able to facilitate more rapid economic outcomes, positive outcomes.
Okay. Some people might say that, Arizona's got the economy is working well right now. This may seem like a silly question, but why do we, we've done well so far. Why do we need a new economy?
Well, we are doing well. And I think that's a good and fair question. And it goes to something like this. And so right now we're attracting all these electric vehicle manufacturers to Arizona, battery manufacturers, advanced technology companies, hydrogen-based truck design companies, hydrogen-based fuels. Everything's whatever you have achieved in the past are laurels that I wouldn't spend a lot of time resting on, because the rate of technological change is so fast. Let's just take autonomous vehicles. So let's say that autonomous vehicles become commonplace, which they will. And let's say in 10 years, half of the driving jobs in the economy are gone because they've been replaced by computationally enhanced driving systems within trucks, delivery trucks, Uber vehicles, or what have you. Where do those thousands and thousands and thousands of people find new jobs that used to be driving trucks? Well, you need to be upgrading the entire economy and the educational level of everyone to drive everyone forward into this new workplace in the way that it works. How do you, let me give you another example. Let's say that the new economy is built on, around the world is built on entire new technological paradigms relative to the use of water. And there's massive new water distribution systems, water management systems, delivering water to individual plants and so forth and so on. Is Arizona going to be a place building and distributing these water management technologies? Or is Arizona just going to be a place that buys them? Let's look at something like, there's a new company in Arizona here, just got over $100 million of venture capital. That's an advanced software as a service company called Persephone. And that company does accounting for carbon and accounting for sustainability and accounting for environmental issues. So massive, massive new economy around the tracking of carbon, the use of carbon, the extraction of carbon from the atmosphere. So again, is Arizona going to be producing those technologies and advancing those technologies, or just buying those technologies to use? And so the opportunity here is to recognize that we have a very good economy in Arizona. How do we make one of the best economies in a moment when economic change is going to be accelerating, and we need to move our new economy type concepts and our technology capabilities to the highest level?
So I'm going to go ahead and take one question that's already come up by Robert, who asks, how can state government help enable our rise to tier 1?
State government can do a number of things. Obviously we need to continue to be a low tax state. We need to be a state with fair taxes. So there's a number of economic policy issues. We need to continue the open and free spirit of free enterprise that we have in Arizona. Those two things are essential. We need to have fantastic schools to prepare the workforce for the future. People that aren't graduating from high school, which is still a very large number of people in Arizona, are not going to have significant opportunities for employment as they may have had in the past. That's going to be changing. So there's an educational foundation that's needed. Then we need to then do what we're doing at ASU, build the world's greatest, largest, most significant, highest speed, most agile engineering school that humans have ever made. So we're working on that, and the state is being helpful in that. I think the state government has to then also think through a number of infrastructure issues. The old infrastructures of highways and bridges need to be the most capable, the most structured, the highest quality possible. But we also need infrastructure in digital communications. We need infrastructure in high-speed connectivity to every home. Manufacturing in the future will be distributed. So somebody could be living in Prescott Valley, operating a significant manufacturing facility out of their garage, working at home and making a lot of money running 3D printers in a manufacturing network. Well, that requires you to have high-speed connectivity. And I think the state also has got to work on this notion of finding ways to partner. How can we partner to become the best home possible to these new companies as they're emerging? I was talking to a guy yesterday who's the co-CEO of a company in San Francisco that's looking to expand out of San Francisco. They're in the planetary monitoring business. The name of the company is Planet, and they're looking at Arizona as one of the places that they want to locate. They're putting up satellite after satellite after satellite, and they're building the technologies for this, but they're not a satellite company. They're an information company about how the earth works, how you can optimize water distribution, food manufacturing, transportation logistics, how you can prepare for climate variability, all these unbelievable things, and they're already wildly successful. The state needs to figure out how we can partner with these kinds of companies also.
You mean like a public-private partnership? Is that what you're talking about?
In some cases, public-private partnerships. So I'll give you an example. So in the infrastructure bill, not the Build Back Better bill that everybody was arguing about, But the infrastructure bill, which was passed by Congress and signed by the president, about half of that bill is focused on traditional infrastructure, airports, harbors, roads, bridges, repair, and build new ones, like hopefully the interstate up to Las Vegas from Phoenix. And then about half of that bill is focused on the infrastructure of the future, electrification of the roadways for electric vehicles, the building of hydrogen production facilities, the building of carbon capture facilities. All of those things require state participation in one way or another. And that's something that Arizona should figure out how to do, to work with companies, to work with the federal government, to get these things going, to get these things underway in the same way that the state has been involved in, roads and bridges and other kinds of infrastructure.
I want to go back to the displaced truck driver for just a second.
Right.
And I was going to ask the question my way, but I've got somebody addressed it out in the audience. Peter says most of the new economy jobs will require higher skills and education. What will happen to those whose low-tech service jobs have been displaced by the new technologies? What opportunities for that segment of the workforce will be created? And I guess what I was going to ask is, what do you tell the young truck driver, the guy that's just starting out in a truck driving now? I mean, what do you tell him?
Well, so what I tell that person is, and that's a very good question, Peter. So this is what's likely to happen. So what I say to that person is that if you can get yourself educated in supply chain logistics or trucking logistics or something associated with systems management, that you, the truck driver, at some point will be managing 40 trucks. You'll have 5 technical assistants, and the 6 of you will be managing 40 trucks instead of 40 drivers with one manager. Those 40 trucks will be, dealing with all kinds of complexity. Your wages will be probably 2 to 3 times your wages as a truck driver or more. The other truck drivers who, didn't go into those jobs of, logistics master and truck systems engineering master and so forth, the hope is there that we'll be able to have educational opportunities for them to be moving into the companies that are making the systems that are now managing these trucks and the other infrastructure that's supporting these trucks as moving into other types of transportation systems. And so the key here, Gary, and to the questioner, Peter, is about upgrading everything and everyone as much as possible. Now, what that means then, and this is what we're doing, is we're rethinking how we work. We now give degrees on campus. We now give degrees online. We're now expanding what we call the ASU Learning Enterprise as a part of the new economy initiative. And now we're going to be offering courses to everyone, pathways forward, the way a truck driver could pick up some software courses from ASU and then move into software. Now, it doesn't mean that there won't be any truck drivers. It just means there'll be fewer truck drivers, and the truck drivers that remain will be given increasingly complex assignments. And so we just see that everything has to be upgraded. And the same thing that I'm saying for the truck drivers then applies to lots of other professions and lots of other areas. And so the key is trying to find ways to upgrade everyone's capabilities, either to become more creative or more adaptive to whatever the economy is moving toward.
Okay. So how do we build a new economy workforce?
Well, we start building a new economy workforce by getting everyone through high school. So right now you can legally drop out of high school in Arizona at age 16 and you're done. And so the number of jobs for high school dropouts, a number of available jobs for high school dropouts is declining like a rock. And so we need to get everybody through high school before age 25. We need to have every tool available. We need every high school graduate to be prepared for a 21st century economy and all of its complexities, not a 20th century economy. We need to get about half the population past high school into community colleges or universities or technical school, maybe 60%. I think that's our goal now. That then allows us to then prepare the workforce. Now, if you say, well, why are we doing all of this? Well, we had these same discussions back when no one graduated from high school. We had the same discussions when no one knew how to read. So this is just the standard process. It's just now what we don't realize is that you have to keep doing this. It's not like it stops. So as things become richer and deeper and more complicated and more robust and opportunities grow, you've got to be lifting up the entire workforce. And so the other thing that we need, and this is really important, is that we need lifelong education. So let's say, Gary, you decided at age 50, you wanted to do something else. And there were 4 or 5 things that you needed that you hadn't picked up along the way. Where do you go for that? Where do you go for those courses or that training or that insight or that group that you can work with? Well, lifelong learning, what we call universal learning, has got to become ubiquitous. You may enter into the most important aspect of your life at age 70, where your wisdom is the highest that it's ever going to be. You've lived long enough to be wise and experienced, but there's some things you still need to know, or there's things you still want to know. So we've got to change this notion that education is all for young people and realize that education has now got to be available for everyone across the entirety of their life. So those are the things that we need in the new economy.
Okay. So how does Arizona, I think you may have touched on this a little bit already, but how does Arizona compare to other states in investing in the new economy?
Well, Arizona is interesting. So Arizona allows for lots of entrepreneurial activity. Like ASU is a completely entrepreneurially driven institution. We get a very small investment from the state, but we get very wide degrees of freedom to be entrepreneurial and, push and shove, give and take, it works. But having said that, we're under investing compared to other states in K-12 education, and we're underperforming. We're allowing innovation with our charter schools. We're allowing innovation in our public schools, but we've got a lot of the system, a lot of the enterprise that's lagging. And what we don't realize is that those lags are like sea anchors behind the sailboat. So as the winds of the new economy are pushing sailboats faster and faster and faster, those with sea anchors, a less well-educated workforce, a less adaptive workforce, fewer college graduates. Right now, we're producing and importing fewer college graduates than the future economy of Arizona will need. And so the state investment is less in those areas than Texas, less than in those areas than Utah, dramatically less than Wyoming, and dramatically less than Washington, just picking several Western states that we compete against. And so the state should be making strategic investments. And then I guess I'll say is that also changing their investment model. So right now, investments do not carry with it consequences for non-performance. So if we're going to invest more in K-12, which we need to, it should be coming with performance requirements, performance outcomes. And so what we need is new investment models, new performance indicators, and new investment mechanisms, new ways to secure investments, to be held accountable for investments, and so forth.
So James in the audience asks, doesn't Arizona have a higher percentage of retirees compared to the other higher tier states, which makes Arizona's challenge to join these tier 1 states?
The answer is yes, but that's an old view, and I understand that James's question. So we recruit a lot of people come to Arizona after having already worked somewhere else. They're either beginning to become retired, or they become retired, or they've done all their hard work and earned their money somewhere else, and then they come here. And so we're a high recruiter of college graduates above the age of 50, a very high recruiter above the age of 60, and we're a low recruiter and a low producer of college graduates under the age of 30. So it turns out that the states that are most active produce large numbers of college graduates before they're 30, and they recruit college graduates under the age of 30. And we're behind all of the other states that I mentioned in each of those criteria. So what we have is an overpopulation of one group relative to economic transition, and an underpopulation of another group. The underpopulation of the college graduates under 30 is the thing that actually holds us back, not the so many people that are at the end of their financial careers.
So let's see here. I lost my place. Where are the opportunities for Arizona to excel in the new economy?
One of the funny things, that's a great question. So Arizona is supremely advantaged in a number of areas. One, this is one of the most beautiful places on the planet. Two, we're a relatively urban concentrated state like Nevada and New Jersey. 3, our rural communities are, with some exceptions, prosperous. Meaning there's huge opportunity here in the notion of the Arizona economy becoming one which can become a place that can accelerate its economic growth through connectivity. I think we've got significant opportunity in Arizona around this abundance of sunlight, and abundance of water, which we actually have in the context of, in the way that I'm using it. And those two things together would allow us, if we could think it through, to build what I call a photon-driven economy. That is a sun-driven economy, a sunlight-driven economy. So many things now can be manufactured with nothing but sunlight. You can produce electrons from sunlight. That's called solar power. You can produce new chemicals from sunlight, water, and carbon dioxide using man-made methods of photosynthesis. I won't walk through all of this, but we have huge advantage in this particular space, and should be taking every advantage of that. We've got massive opportunities in advanced agriculture. Indoor agriculture could be unbelievably lucrative in Arizona. 3 crops a year, massive sunlight. There's the economic opportunity in Arizona, I think, is actually beyond anything of any place I can imagine. But it hasn't been thought about in how to lay down the tracks for that economic opportunity. So we have massive opportunities at this technological moment to advance Arizona into probably one of the most significant economic performing places on the planet. And every opportunity sits here. We've got to enhance human capital. We've got to enhance our knowledge production, and we've got to enhance our entrepreneurial activity in some of these newer areas of advanced economic systems.
And you did mention the company in Scottsdale, I think, right?
There's a company in Scottsdale called Source,
yeah,
which spun out of ASU. It's raised hundreds of millions of dollars of venture capital. They'll soon be putting solar facilities into buildings, collecting the water from the atmosphere for the buildings, and then in those same buildings growing the food for the people that want gardens in these large apartment buildings, with the water just coming in from the building itself. Or producing purified water or agricultural water or systems. I mean, it's unbelievable what they can now do with their advanced systems and their advanced nanotechnology that they're working on.
And how far away are we from that becoming, having the apartment building where?
That's where they're headed. I mean, that's what they're doing. I mean, they're selling these technologies on a more distributed fashion right now. But I mean, that kind of company is up and running and underway and has many applications. And at the same time, we've also got spin-out companies out of ASU that are working in, nano atomic scale manufacturing. So as we're making more and more advanced materials, where you make those advanced materials with chemistry and systems that are smaller than a molecule. I mean, they're smaller than they're nanoparticles. And so we built the systems that allow you to move single atoms around to build the surfaces that you need for advanced systems. So those are all whole new industries themselves. And so we're working on all of those things.
You mentioned in your talk to the Appropriations Committee the other day that you have now either you're partnering with or companies have spun off over 400 companies.
Yes. So we have hundreds of companies that we've spun out. We've been raising money for these companies. We've got investors investing in these companies. In fact, ASU is now ranked in the top 10 of all universities issuing patents. We're in the top handful of universities generating spin-out companies. But even more than these companies that are coming out of our faculty are these companies that are now spinning out of our students. Which the university doesn't, we don't own that intellectual property. The student owns that intellectual property. And there's hundreds and hundreds of these, and some of them now are doing unbelievably well. We had a group of students, in fact, not organized into a company, just won the X Prize, the Global X Prize for masking technology. So our group of students won a $500,000 prize. And so what we're finding is that the 20-year-olds and the 25-year-olds who are fearless and who are trained in these new ways of thinking are just generating idea after idea after idea after idea. We have a student spin-out company that developed a new technique to attack jaundice jaundice with a light technology for babies that are born with jaundice. And that company now is raising capital, moving forward, making things happen, all based here in Arizona. And so we're very excited about all that.
So let's see here. I got a question from Brian, and he asks, how does Arizona evolve the venture capital infrastructure that has so successfully funded and fueled Silicon Valley?
Well, that's happening now. And so, Brian, that's a good question. So it turns out we've been trying to convince people in California that, it's as close to, Phoenix is as close to San Francisco and Silicon Valley as San Diego or Los Angeles. I mean, it's just a few minutes on a plane. And so this notion that people have had of venture capitalists like to, be able to go to their meeting and be home by dinner or be home in the evening to be with their families. Well, Phoenix fits into that whole thing. Arizona fits into that whole thing. And so what we need to do is think about the broader ecosystem of venture capital, West Coast venture capital, from Austin to Silicon Valley, from Seattle to Salt Lake City to Phoenix and Denver. And so those cities that I just mentioned, including Los Angeles, or adding Los Angeles, those are, should be the West Coast network of new entrepreneurially driven, venture capital welcoming, new company startup places. And Phoenix is not yet at the level of any of the other places that I mentioned, but easily could be by just changing mindset. And so it's a mindset thing.
So, excuse me, last year, the Arizona legislature gave a substantial appropriation in one-time funding for the initiative. What were you able to do with that funding, and what's the status of the projects and so forth? And how much I think it was 32 million, correct?
Right. So it was a substantial investment. We appreciate it very much. Let's put it into perspective. I mean, it's in the tens of millions of dollars, which are going to allow us to accelerate the hiring of new faculty in the engineering school, grow the engineering school into the largest and most dynamic engineering school ever built in the history of the United States, which we've just achieved that scale. And now we're accelerating our evolution. So that's one of the things that the investment helps us to do. And then the second thing that we're working on with these investments is the launching of new science and technology centers that are around new industries. And so one is focusing on ultra advanced, super advanced microelectronics beyond where all of the new manufacturing facilities are coming, working with companies, working with the university, working with the government, working with the Defense Department, working with everyone for the chips, not that are being manufactured now, but the chips that will be manufactured 5 years from now or 8 years from now. And so we're working on that. And then we have a second program focused in advanced manufacturing itself. So how do you manufacture metallically shielded biomolecular materials that have computational capability within magnetic fields, under electric force, under physical force, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How do you make some of the most complicated systems imaginable? That requires a whole new way to think about manufacturing. So we're launching a new manufacturing school, not just with these resources. These resources are only a fraction of what we're putting together. It turns out the government of the United States has decided to greatly accelerate the dominance of the United States in microelectronics, all things microelectronics. You hear about the chip shortage. You hear about what we need, where we're going, how we need more chips, faster chips, better chips. All of that's being reconcentrated in the United States. Much of that's being concentrated in Arizona. All of that needs more R&D activity. And then the government of the United States is about to invest almost $60 billion in the what they call the CHIPS Act, which is to accelerate and move the U.S. into dominance. Not just with government resources, but with most of the resources are private, but moving the US into always the fastest, always the best, always the lowest cost, always the most empowering chip. Think of it as a microchip that's producible to allow us to do anything that we can imagine, concentrating that research and that manufacturing here in Arizona. So we're very excited about being a part of that. We're trying to compete on all of that. And this new economy initiative investment from the state, some of which we got last year, some of which we're asking for this year, helps us to be that leading university with those leading companies, helping, for instance, the Defense Department and the Air Force to have the fastest, most capable, independent thinking, chip-based brains for every weapon system that we need to defend the United States, as well as the hundreds and hundreds of advanced microchips now going into every vehicle that's being manufactured, and every home that's being built, and every phone that every person is carrying, and every biomedical device that anyone has, from your wearable to whatever it is. All of that, we're trying to become the center of that from a science and technology perspective. So that's what those resources are for us.
All right. So you were there at the Appropriations Committee the other day, and
I was an observer, yes.
So Governor Ducey's proposing another $46 million for ongoing funding for the initiative, and which he said the other day about half would go to ASU for expansion of the engineering school, and to launch the 5 science and technology centers.
Right, as a piece of the cost. I mean, those dollar amounts don't get the whole thing done, but they're like seed capital for us to get going, right?
I think you touched a little bit on it, but can you expand a little bit on these science and tech centers, and what's a center when in the structure of a university?
So a center in a university is an entity outside of a department or a school in which faculty from multiple departments and multiple schools come together, and then they begin the process of technologically evolving technological capabilities that don't exist. So we have a professor here in electrical engineering named Dan Bliss, who's working on a big project for the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency in his research center. He's got students in there. He's got other faculty members in there. He's working on a chip that can calculate as fast as humans can calculate on a chip and communicate at the same time without overheating. So think of what you want in the brain of a missile being used in the United States to defend against a hypersonic missile threat from, let's say, another country. And so a center is bringing together those faculty members, those students, those capabilities to work on something new. Now, these centers, these 5 centers, are bigger than that. And so they're bringing together what ultimately would be 10 or 15 or 20 companies. So for instance, we had a flexible display center for many years, and still have, that had dozens and dozens and dozens of companies making displays like the screen on your computer that are flexible, that you could wear on your clothing or embed in and shape and move around. So that would be dozens of companies, many faculty members, dozens or hundreds of students, all working on the building of a technology that doesn't exist. And so it's the bringing together of all these groups to, in a sense, birth this new technology, birth these new tools that can build the new technology, get the science that can underpin the new technology. So these 5 centers that we're talking about building under the New Economy Initiative are in areas where we think, where we know, not where we think, where we know technology is now headed, because everything that we're doing in the research lab tells us that we can now build, for instance, in the case of Professor Bliss, we can now build chips that can calculate and communicate at the same time from the same device in the same microelectronic structure, which then allows higher speed everything. And so that's an example.
And as you mentioned, a lot of your initiative is through your entrepreneurship, and right. You've got things running and going, right? Like film school in Mesa, and
yeah, we've got a lot of stuff going on. So think of industry not just as these chips and all this stuff, but it turns out our new Sidney Poitier Film School, which will be based in Mesa, Tempe, and Los Angeles, brand new facility in Mesa. The taxpayers of Mesa helped the university to build it. The university raised other money, developed other partnerships. Out of that facility, now we're going to be laying the foundation for the creative industries using advanced technologies. So advanced digital technologies, able to produce anything, design anything, project anything, new kinds of films, new kinds of movies, new kinds of animations, new kinds of games, new kinds of learning platforms, all those things coming out of that facility in Mesa. And so the new economy effort at ASU is broader than the state's investment. we're trying to lay down the foundation or lay down the track for Arizona producing the people, the ideas, the technologies, the tools, the systems, the creativity, the linkage between technology and art, the linkage between music and science, music and engineering, media and engineering. We're working in all of these spaces at the same time. And at the end of the day, we'll have one of the most advanced universities in the world, not just in engineering, but in science, engineering, media, arts, in all these areas.
All right. So last year, when you spoke with us for a morning scoop, you mentioned there were certain lawmakers who were resistant to your funding request, but of course the legislature did approve it. So how did you win them over, and how have they responded to the your latest request?
Well, obviously the governor's been supportive by including in his budget request,
Right.
the initialization of the resources. So we're very happy with that, and happy that those investments were made last year. We're having some issues convincing some folks that, we have issues convincing some folks that the university should even exist. And so that's sort of a separate set of questions. But Senator Boyer was very powerful for us last year. He understands, what it's going to take to build the new economy. He understands where this is all going, and there's a wide range. Obviously, a majority of the legislature supported our ideas. One of the things that we're having a hard time with is getting people to understand the linkage between education, educational attainment, advanced education, knowledge creation, knowledge development, and the new economy. So Arizona has been so successful at attracting people here from other economies in the United States and other economies around the world. And then we've built an economy around that. There's just not a full recognition of what that future economy needs to be. And the New Economy Initiative is really helping us to move forward. I think we have strong support among legislative leadership. I think we have strong support from individual members on both sides of the aisle. But what we don't have yet is broader recognition of the need to be continuing to evolve the economy in Arizona and the role of the universities in doing that.
How do you convince somebody that?
Well, I mean, to me, I live in the movie Groundhog Day, and so if you remember that movie,
Yeah.
You wake up every day, Bill Murray stops the alarm clock, and then you get back at it in the same way, just constantly trying to improve your message, constantly trying to answer people's questions, constantly trying to get people to understand that the new economy with high wage jobs floats all boats in Arizona, gives economic opportunity for Arizona, allows Arizona to become not just a successful place, but the most successful place. One of the things that we're really interested in is how do we help Arizona to become the most successful model of economic democracy yet to have evolved in the history of the United States. You do that by having an agile economy that's adaptive and growing. You do that by taking the waves of creative destruction that Joseph Schumpeter, the Austrian economist, used to talk about, and just relishing the waves of creative destruction. These waves of innovation, these waves of change, using these waves of change to drive the economy forward to become more successful. And you do that by helping all of our residents here in Arizona to be increasingly economically successful through more and more opportunity to be creative. I mean, it's all those things together.
So what's the assurance that Arizona will get, a return on investment from the funds that the state is providing, and how do we measure success?
Well, one assurance is the state invests less than $400 million a year in Arizona State University right now. And for that $400 million a year of investment, we generate another $4 billion of revenue to the institution, which is then spent in Arizona. And then the economic impact of the institution is several fold beyond that. So let's call it 15 billion. Then our graduates then have an inordinately, they pay a lot of taxes. because they have higher wages. And so the impact of the return on the state for the 400 million or slightly less than $400 million of investment is unbelievable. And so what I know is that we can ensure a substantial return on every dollar invested in the university itself. And we can ensure and guarantee a broader economic opportunity by creating waves, ripples of economic opportunity throughout the economy. So from an investment perspective, and a lot of people in Arizona, have told us not to talk about returns on public investments. I'm like, why not? I mean, what was the return on the investment on the Central Arizona project? It's in the trillions of dollars. What was the return on the Salt River project from its investment 122 years ago? It's unbelievable. It's almost incalculable. And so these investments are also substantial opportunities for return, and we can not only show it, but guarantee it.
So what's the state got to do to prepare our K-12 students for this new economy? And, how do community colleges come into play, or, other forms of education?
The state needs to do, a lot of things that they're presently doing, allowing for innovation, allowing for individual school districts to innovate and move forward, allowing, innovative, successful, measured outcome charter schools to be successful, allowing school choice, all of those things. But then the state's also got to be making more investments. The investments are insufficient and they're not tied to return. And so, schools that are underperforming need to have their performance enhanced. They need to be moved towards higher levels of innovation. We run with public school district partners. We run 11 charter schools in Arizona. That is, ASU does. We have a higher than 98% graduation rate. We have a higher than 90% college going rate and a very high college success rate. And we do that by innovating. And so what we need to do is we need to start making investments, holding people accountable for the investments, measuring returns, assessing returns. The Helios Foundation here in Phoenix has set up at their headquarters in Phoenix a decision theater working with ASU that's focused on how do we actually get every school district in the state, every public school in the state, both the publics and the public charters, how do we get all of them performing at the highest level? How do we hold everyone accountable for these outcomes? And so what we have now is we have an argumentative model, which doesn't hold people accountable at the level that they need to be held accountable. We have a less than innovative model. It's not as innovative as it could be. We're not making investments in innovations. We're not making investments in accountability. We're just basically arguing about things on the margin. We need to start making larger investments and holding people accountable.
Okay. Here's a question from the audience. Joey, he says, I haven't heard much discussion of AI and investment in AI tech. Is that an area of focus in the new economy? I think I mentioned it in the very beginning, but just
so Joey, very good question. It's so much of a focus that we just redesigned one of our engineering schools. We have 6, 7, 8 engineering schools. We just reorganized one around computer science, computer technology, and what we call augmented intelligence. So augmented intelligence, I'm not a big fan of the use of the word artificial. There's nothing artificial about what we're building. And so augmented intelligence systems are going to be in everything. They're going to be in every microelectronic system. They're going to be in your medical care. They're going to be in your home health care. They're going to be in your kid's school. They're going to be in the university as learning systems. They're going to be in your car, in your vehicle. Fast calculating, rapid speed driving assistance programs will be available to everybody. They're going to be in your wheelchair as your legs, poop out later when you're, 97 in the future. They're going to be everywhere. They're going to be in the mechanical devices that are running your shoulder replacement. They're going to be in your glasses, changing how you're interacting with whatever you're doing. They're going to be everywhere. And they're also going to empower whole new ways to manage and whole new ways to think around really complicated things. So for instance, in agriculture right now, we waste most of the water that we're using in agriculture, and we don't have to. If we had more advanced artificial intelligence systems, we could be delivering water exactly when it's needed, where it's needed, how it's needed, using augmented intelligence systems, drone technologies, all these things. So Joey, that's a really fantastic point to bring up. And that's a big area of focus for us in one of our very large engineering schools.
I'm just reading the end of a question here. So William asks, he says, talent matters. In the 1900s, industrial engineers were the heroes. In the late 90s, the geeks and computer developers, because our heroes became our heroes by 2000. What academic disciplines will create the new economy beyond AI and machine learning, and therefore become our heroes by 2040?
Yeah, so William, that's a very astute point. You know, the Harvard Business School started as a railroad management school to train railroad management engineers, because they needed, as you said, the equivalent of industrial engineers to run these really complicated national-based infrastructure called railroads. And so talent does matter. And I think the talent going forward, the 21st century will be much more biological than physical. And so more and more capability in the biosciences, not just related to health, but related to food supply, making the oceans better, taking the plastics out of the ocean, keeping the food supply healthy, keeping the food supply rich and robust, sustainable, moving to biological systems that are natural versus chemical systems. So the chemical systems that we have for fertilizers and all these other kinds of things are destructive in a lot of ways in the long run. Well, what could we do that's more natural? What could we do that's more sustainable? If you add to that, then I think there's going to be huge opportunities for people to be unbelievably creative, using technologies to enhance creativity, new ways of learning, new ways of gaming, new ways of thinking, new ways of augmenting, new ways of helping people's individual lives, new ways of helping people that might have a software glitch in the way their brain is set up, and how do we deal with the very complicated human brain issues and human mind issues and human performance issues, all of which are going to be able to be enhanced biologically and computationally. So I think, William, your question, where are things going? It's going to be in the really complicated also notion. The heroes are going to be the people that can integrate. They can integrate between the sciences, technology, and the humanities. I also think that, just to be clear, this doesn't diminish at all, the need for the humanities. The hottest thing in the market now is a philosophy major or an English major who can code. Because the philosophy major and the English major has the broadest conceptual set of premises about history, about ideas, about how the world works. So if you can get a philosophy major who understands ideas and concepts and the human species and the ideas that humans can build, and you're giving that person coding capability, or you've also double majored them as a biology major, that's a hot thing. And so I think the heroes of the future, the talent of the future, is going to be those people.
So we got time for one more question, and this one comes from Glenn. What are the implications of the new economy for rural Arizona?
The exciting thing about rural Arizona is that one, the natural environment in which rural Arizona is embedded is so robust and so beautiful that a lot of people rightfully and excitingly want to be there. My wife and I have a weekend house we go to in rural Arizona. It's fabulous. We go there often. It's unbelievable. But I think that the opportunities in rural Arizona are actually enhanced by all of this technological capability. If we can get high-speed internet to every home, if we can get 5G connectivity, everywhere, rural Arizona can do anything. Nothing would be left out. All the things that I'm talking about are all distributable. The systems are distributable. The work is distributable. The creativity is distributable. The interconnectivity is distributable. And so if you're living in Payson, there's nothing you won't be able to do in Payson, and you can have the fabulous opportunity of living in Payson. If you're living in Greer out in eastern Arizona, there's no reason that you can't be fully connected. If you're living up in the Hopi Nation or the Navajo Nation, if we could get connectivity there, or down in Sells, down in more southern Arizona, if we could move into the various tribal communities, these kinds of connections throughout rural Arizona, you've got opportunities to be engaged in anything and any direction that the economy is moving. And 5 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case, and that is the case now.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Crow. You got me excited about the future. So
Nice to see you, Gary. Appreciate it.
So we've run out of time, and it's time to conclude our program. I want to thank our sponsor, Arizona State University, and also thank the viewers who made the time at this hour to watch. I'd like to remind everybody that we'll have two more morning scoops in February, so keep an eye out as we announce the details, and have a great weekend, everyone. Thank you again, Dr. Crow.
Yeah, see you, Gary. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.